Alright, what is up everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, well, thank you for joining. I go by PlaneJoe, and I am a pilot based here in Orlando, Florida. In addition to being a pilot, I am a software engineer and I work in the simulation space, and today that is exactly what we're talking about, simulation development. Now, for anyone who is familiar with the simulation or really the gaming industry in general, they would be familiar with how many hardware configurations there are out there. There's so many options to choose from. Some of them can be pricey, some of them are on the more affordable side, but there's so many different options and configurations that you can choose from. Now, as a sim developer, it is also part of my job to be aware of new and innovative technologies that kind of bring new capabilities to the table. And that's mainly for my customers, but also for my own personal use. Once again, I was scrolling through Instagram, at PlaneJoe, by the way, and I came across this advertisement from Sporty's Pilot Shop, and they were showcasing this new game controller that was released specifically for flight simulation, and I knew that I had to get my hands on it. So, naturally, I reached out to the company, Honeycomb Aviation, and I was left on red. And then I also went to their website to get the controller myself, and it was out of stock. Luckily, I went to Sporty's Pilot Shop, and they had the controller available there, so shout out to Sporty's on coming in clutch there. So I went to Sporty's Pilot Shop and I purchased the controller there, and the package just arrived, and so I'm super excited to be doing a review of the Honeycomb Aviation Echo Aviation controller. Again, I purchased this controller with my own money. This video is not sponsored, though it'd be great if it was. But enough yapping, let's open up this box and check out what Honeycomb Aeronautical brings to the table. All right, here is the package, and let's get it unboxed. All right, we got a nice magazine that came with it. Gotta love that. Thank you, Sporty's. And here is the controller. All right, and there's that one. Ooh, it comes with a nice carrying case. Check that out. You can see along the top the advertisement up there. We got this nice hard shell case. Okay, very cool. All right, got to get a little bit of ASMR action. Ooh, check that out. Here is the controller. And it comes with some accessories. Of course, we have the cable, USB-C. And then it seems like we have a few different options for buttons here. What is this? Does it pull apart or something? Or oh, this is the wireless transmitter. That's cool. Wow. Now this is sick. I love that. Awesome, so let's talk about this controller real quick. So as you can see, there are quite a few buttons on here. It looks similar to like a normal gaming controller, but obviously the thing that stands out are all these switches on the bottom. So let's go through some of these buttons and talk about what I think they are, and we'll see if I'm right. All right, so I'm gonna set the case off to the side, and let's just talk about the controller real quick. Beautiful controller right here. So it is all blacked out. I think it only comes in this one color, but talking about the outside of the controller and build quality wise, so it is a plasticky controller. I can definitely tell it's like a plastic. There is this nice rubberized material around the back of it. So it doesn't feel like it's gonna slip too much, so that feels pretty good. It would be cool if the grip came a little bit around the top here, but you know, that's just my personal preference. Now in terms of buttons, you have this kind of hat switch up here. So on some aircraft, that would be how you trim the aircraft. But you can hear It's nice and clicky there and bounces back, so it's not a loose hat. You also have a thumb switch, so I would assume that's for looking around. And then you have these 4 buttons right here. I'm assuming those are pretty customizable, but it would be like your A, B, X, and Y buttons on most controllers. Now, again, one of the things that stands out are these 4 levers here. So I'm assuming you can customize them the way that you want, but you can see that there's actually some notches on here, which is pretty cool. So again, there's 4 of these levers. They all move independently, very smooth. There is no D10 on any of them, which I think is good, meaning there's not like a little stop before you can get all the way through. So in software, you could probably create your own D10 if you need to, but these feel good. And additionally, there is this trim wheel right here. And that's pretty nice. It has like nice haptic feedback. You can hear the clicks on it, so I'm really happy with how that moves. Now at the top, you can see that there are 4 buttons here. I'm not entirely sure what they're for. I'd have to see that in the software, but it's nice that they have like some settings or quick menu buttons up here, it looks like. I think one of them might be a checklist button, but we'll see. Now at the front of the controller, there are 4 buttons. You have your right and left trigger, and then you have your right and left bumper. They don't push in too far, but there is a nice haptic click there. Additionally, you have the USB-C charging port, or if you want to control the PC, you can use either USB connection or a wireless transmitter. Now, additionally, along the bottom, what I think is really cool is you have these little rudder knobs, and you can see they are connected just like you would have in a real aircraft. So I can't push them both down at the same time or anything like that, but you can see how they move each other. So that feels really good. I like that. And they are rubberized. It has a really nice material. It's like non-slip, the same non-slip material that's right here. You can see it here. And I love that the non-slip material has that honeycomb. So nice little nod to the company there. Now lastly, one of the things that really stood out is actually having these 3 switches on the bottom. So you have one right here. I'm gonna guess that's your parking brake. Another right here for your landing gear. And then you have, okay, so your flap, it goes either a click up or a click down. So that's pretty cool. So flap, landing gear, and parking brake. All right, so that is all of the buttons on the actual controller. Again, really nice to feel it like this. And then you can also see that there are some customizable switches off to the side right here. So for example, if I wanted to use like a mixture knob, it looks like I can pull this out. Yep, it just pops out like that. And then you just pop in the other one. So you can customize this however you want to. Check that out. So really cool that they give you all these customization options out of the box. So that's really cool, and it just fits right into the case like that. So very nice. I love that it's a hard shell case, so you can travel around with this. And in terms of the controller itself, like this thing is pretty light. Like it has good build quality. It feels solid, but again, plasticky, but it's also very light, like a normal controller. So overall, I'm really happy with how this feels. Additionally, I think all the buttons are in like a good spot. We'll see how I feel when we're actually flying around in the sim, but I'm really happy, especially with the rudder control down here. A lot of controllers, or a lot of setups don't really have that built into a controller. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Again, I haven't even seen customization like this before. So that's really awesome. And again, the last thing, I've never seen having 3 switches on the bottom like this. I think that's going to become really handy. So real quick, I want to do a comparison to one of my favorite ever gaming controllers, which is the Xbox Elite controller. Also comes in this case, but I just want you guys to see the size comparison between the controllers. So you have the Elite controller, and then you have the Echo Aviation. You can see they're pretty much similar size. Feels good in the hands here on the Elite controller, and it feels pretty similar. The Echo Aviation controller might be a little bit wider, but yeah, it feels pretty comparable, and it's definitely lighter than the Xbox controller here. I think that's really cool. Again, this is one of my favorite controllers, and I love that they're pretty much the same form factor. Again, I love that they both have the gripping material on them. They both feel pretty good in the hands, very ergonomic. So yeah. So I wanted to show this off real quick. The controller came with this manual, and it's actually pretty helpful because it shows some of the configurations. So it shows that you have your standard throttle levers and whatnot, but I found the general aviation levers and matched it up to what they have in the manual, and it looks just like it would on the aircraft. So check it out. This is the general aviation setup. So I'm really excited to try this thing out. It has like a whole like flap lever there. You have your mixture, you do have your prop if you were flying complex. I'm not going to be doing that for this, but pretty cool to have it configured specifically for my use case. They also, I was trying to figure out some of the other levers because I didn't recognize them, but they have a specific set for Airbus, and then they have a set for Boeing. And it's literally just changing one on there, but I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, so now that we're already unboxed and we have the controller set up in the configuration that I want, I haven't done any setup with this yet. I want to see how plug and play this controller is. It says that it works immediately with Microsoft Flight Simulator, so we're going to try that out. And then we're also going to try out Lockheed Martin's Prepared and see if I can get a nice setup, see what I need to change, and build out a configuration that works for me. So we're gonna hop onto the computer and try out this little controller. I should also say that it does have a wired and wireless option. I will kind of talk about it as I'm playing around to see if there's like a latency difference there. But yeah, just be aware of that as we go through. All right, let's get a sim up and running. All right, so the first thing that we need to do to use the controller is actually get the profiles for it. So I went to the Honeycomb Aeronautical website, and if you go to the Echo Aviation controller page, you can scroll down into the downloads area. It'll just be this drop down here, and then you can download the different things that you need. So for this, I downloaded the 2 profiles that I will want for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. So I got the general profile, and it'll open up in a new tab, and you just click the download button. And then I also went to the airplane profiles, and there's a few options to choose from. I am doing a Cessna 172 in this example, so I got the single engine profile down here, but you can see ones for other aircraft like the A320neo and the 737 MAX. So just get what you need, or you can configure your own profile as well. All right, so we have loaded up into Microsoft Flight Simulator, and the first thing that we need to do is load the controls. So first thing is go to the settings, go to controls, and we have to scroll down to our controller. So you can see mouse, keyboard. We want Echo Aviation controller, and we'll have to create a profile, and it can be named whatever because we're gonna import after. So all I'm gonna do is hit that gear icon, create. I'm gonna call it whatever we want here. Hit OK, let that load in, and now it gives me the option to import. So I'm gonna hit import and load in the profile. All right, so we are loading in the general aviation one, or sorry, the general controls, and then we're gonna load in the single engine control. So let's go down here, create a profile for airplane controls. And now we import. All right, so both of them have been loaded in. So now you have the regular general controls and then the single engine. You can get specific controls for the aircraft. In this case, we're doing a 172, so single engine. So now that we have that loaded up, let's get into the sim. All right, so as you can see, we are loaded in. We've got the controller right here. The hat switch here allows us to look around, and then you can see the throttle right here. I have my parking brake enabled. That's right down here. Landing gear. This one doesn't have retractable landing gear, but then I also have 2 areas for my flaps. So you can actually see my flaps are right here. So let's say that I want to put them down. You can look outside. And there we go. And I can click them down. The other option is to use this flap knob here, and I can set them to where I want. So, and before I mentioned it, but there is not a D10, but there are like a set position at the bottom here, so I can click, and there goes the flap there. So one other thing that I've noticed is this is set for the rudders to be pushed like so. But when I'm flying with a controller, I typically go the opposite. So that's just a personal preference. So I might change that in my settings, but by default, it's for pressing. So pushing forward like so. But I'll leave it to default for now. So now that we're set up, let's get moving. So parking brake is off. We're gonna taxi. Oh, it automatically taxied us. So we're gonna put a little bit of right rudder in here and get ourselves moving. So you can see I drifted a little bit from centerline there, but you kind of get the idea of what's happening here. Okay, and there's another plane above me. You can tell I don't fly Microsoft Flight Simulator too often here, but I think we get the gist of what's happening here. And so if I want to pull up my flap, I can do it with this white button right here. So I can click that up, and just to show that, you can see outside. In fact, we can change the view. There we are. And we can move the flaps up all the way. Oh, actually to 10 degrees. And there we are. Yeah, this feels pretty awesome. So I'm really happy just with the basic controls. I didn't use the dongle installer. This is just the plug and play with the general controls and the single engine GA controls. So that's really nice. I used this button to change my view, and I can zoom in as well with that. And then here, let's correct the aircraft a bit there. And yeah, so now you can see how it's set up here. All right, and just to prove a point, I wanted to show the portability of what we're getting here, right? So that's one of the main selling points of a controller like this. So you could bring a joystick around, but it's much easier to bring a compact controller, and it comes in a nice carrying case. So I'm here waiting for my flight at MCO, and I'm flying to Baltimore. And what I decided to do is do some simming or training while on the go. So I've got my trusty laptop here, and then I've got the controller here. Now in the last part, I was doing it all wired, but I want to show the max portability of this. So we're just going to use the dongle here, and we're going to do wireless. So that's 2.4 gigahertz. Now, I say that portability is one of the main selling points because, again, this is a $150 controller at the time of recording this. And I think that's actually very affordable for what you're getting. Yes, you could get cheaper options out there, but I don't think that you would get the flexibility and the customization of this. So we are going to fly in prepared here. So I'm gonna start recording here. And I'll show a separate video of how I set this up, but again, this controller is pretty much plug and play. I made a custom profile, so I did my own little key bindings for it. We're going to unpause. I can look around, make sure my mixture is good, get my props set, and you can see all the knobs that I'm using here will actually move around just like you saw in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So it does work for other sims as well. So I know that they advertise Microsoft Flight Sim, but it does work for other ones. So again, we're just proving the point. You've already seen that this works. So I'm gonna take off my parking brake and we are going to launch. And now you can see that I am flying, I'm simming while at the airport, right? This is max portability. I'm just running on my laptop and it feels pretty good. Again, you are getting a lot of bang for your buck with a controller like this. So at the end of the day, for 150 bucks, I would recommend getting this controller. And this is probably my new favorite controller to use for flight sims. Unless I have a hands-on throttle and stick, and I'll talk about that in another video, but there you go. This is the Echo Aviation controller from Honeycomb Aeronautical. Boom, and that is a wrap. First time doing a video in public at the airport like this.